And on this one, I think I'm going to side with the Super Bowl champions. I don't think the Packers are alone in wanting to ban this play, but I think it's discrimination, whatever the word is, against one team.
You're tuned in to the Ross Tucker Football Podcast, guiding your gridiron journey, none other than your host, former NFL lineman, Ross Tucker.
Oh, yeah, it is. But it's not just any Ross Tucker Football Podcast. It never is. It's a Wisdom Wednesday, presented, of course, by DraftKings. The crown is yours. I'm Ross Tucker, former NFL offensive lineman. You know that. 5 teams, 7 years. Absolutely love all of the shows, but especially when I get Andrew Brandt on. How many guys can say they were the GM of the Barcelona Dragons, longtime agent, including involved with a bunch of NBA guys like Michael Jordan back in the day? Then he was the executive vice president of player finance for the Green Bay Packers for a long time. Ever since, he's been a professor and a guy in the media. And I say this every time, it's always the right time. It's always perfect timing when Andrew comes on the show. You need to check him out like I do on social media at Andrew Brandt. There's so many topics. The salary cap went up, franchise tag. We got teams letting Matthew Stafford and Jonathan Allen talk to other teams to seek a trade. The Falcons say they're keeping Kirk Cousins as the highest paid backup ever. Perfect time to talk to Andrew, who is presented by my good friends over at Labatt. As if I couldn't already love my dudes at Labatt enough, now you can get cool stuff for doing what you're going to do anyway. Drink beer. It's called Buy Beer, Get Gear from Labatt. Head to the website, snap a photo of your receipt, upload it instantly to rack up points for exclusive merch. How cool is this? You get points for every purchase at any store, bar, or stadium, any size, any product, anywhere you're buying Labatt. Buy beer, get gear. Go to rewards.labattusa.com to sign up.
The Big Show.
All right, Andrew, let's dive into it. I love talking with you always. This is one of our simulcasts, right? You've got the very popular Business of Sports podcast, so this interview will go on that show as well as my Ross Tucker Football Podcast. We do this once every couple months, maybe more so in the off season, which we should, because everybody that listens to the Business of Sports should check out the Ross Tucker Football Podcast or the other shows, Even Money for betting, Fantasy Feast for fantasy, College Draft, getting you ready for the draft. And certainly I would hope that all my listeners that miss Andrew, who used to be on every week, I would hope that they all get their Andrew daily dose on the Business of Sports Podcast. There's a lot to get to, Andrew. I guess I want to start because it's fresh in my mind. This idea of the Rams and the Commanders letting Matthew Stafford and Jonathan Allen speak to other teams about a potential trade. I don't really remember that happening that much when you were working with the Packers, Andrew, but maybe I'm misremembering. Just kind of your history with it and your thoughts on this situation.
Yeah, Ross, great to do this. We always do this simulcast with your podcast and my Business of Sports podcast. And I mentioned the business side because that's what this is all about. To me, the Rams and Stafford don't agree on a number. Whatever he's scheduled to make this year is not to his liking. They're not sure they want to go to a number that he's talking about. He is older. He sacrificed this year of guarantee for more money last year. That's the history here. So not only is he unhappy with his number for 2025, he has no guarantee to it, which again, you would think for Matthew Stafford, not a worry, but again, some strength of contract issue. So if I'm the Rams in this situation, my feeling is they're letting him on the market. Not about trade at this point, but like, wait, what could you get? If you think, I forget his number, $28-30 million is not the right number, what do you think you can get? And go ahead and find out. Similar to Jonathan Allen. To me, it always comes back to money because these are prime players, but there's a difference of opinion as to what they should make. And the best way to find out what a person should make is to gauge the marketplace, which seems to be what both Stafford and Allen are doing with the blessing of the team. So it's an interesting thing. And you're right. This was not on the table years ago. It's kind of a new way of going about business.
So here's what I think is interesting about that, though. Let's just say some of these teams that are supposedly interested, right? Like, let's just say the Giants, for example, okay, and Matthew Stafford. Doesn't how much you're willing to pay for him, Andrew, isn't that somewhat dependent on what draft choice compensation you would have to give up, right? Like, if the Giants are giving up a 1 or let's just say a high 2, well, then maybe they don't want to pay as much. But if they can get him for a 7th-round pick or a 6th-round pick, then they'd be willing to pay him more. So I think it's a little bit, I guess that's part of the discussion with the agent is like, hey, let's think about something reasonable draft choice compensation that the Rams might go for, and let's work off of that in terms of the contract that you would pay him.
Yeah, I mean, I think back to, I know this name doesn't conjure up a lot of great connotations, Ross, but I think about Deshaun Watson. So the Texans held an auction, and then the agents held an auction. So the Texans said, okay, if you want Deshaun Watson, which they didn't, come to us and we'll pre-qualify a trade. I don't know if that's going on, but maybe they're doing it the other way around. So Stafford goes out, chases the market, and then he's got three teams willing to pay him $45 million plus. Then it's the Rams holding the quote unquote auction to see if those teams would be qualified to get Matthew Stafford. In a normal situation, you're right. Obviously, pay and draft choice compensation are directly related. Just seems like this is heading towards that Watson thing where you have two negotiations going on. Both are kind of auction-like, which would make for the probably best compensation due to Stafford and due to the Rams. This will be interesting to watch because deep down, Ross, I don't know about you, but I still am not sold that they're moving him. Like, what could, I don't want to hear about Aaron Rodgers. What could be the plan to move on from Matthew Stafford? Because as much as I love Aaron, that's not a plan. That's a 1-year rental with someone that's not as skilled as Stafford right now. So I don't get that.
You know what I think, Andrew? This is personal opinion. I think the Rams know that Stafford doesn't really want to play anywhere else.
Yeah.
I think he likes living in Los Angeles. I think his wife and their 4 girls like living out there. I think this is, I don't want to say it's chicken, but it's almost like, okay, all right, you want to go to the Pittsburgh Steelers? Okay, and they'll pay you $40 million? All right, go. We would give you 35, or they'll pay you 50. We would give you 40. Is it worth the 10 million? Like I kind of feel like because he likes living there, they have a good team. They have a good young team. Yeah. Where is he going to get a better situation than the Rams? He's not going to get a better situation. He might just get more money.
I don't see him leaving. But you're right. I just see this as a play by both sides. But it is interesting. I mentioned the trade part of it. At least that hasn't hit the news. Like, there's no discussion about trade. There's a discussion about money if he were to go somewhere else. But I just don't see it happening. But whatever it is, Stafford's going to come back to him and say, hey, I can get... You know what it reminds me of, Ross? Like, college sports, where a guy enters the portal. And comes back to the University of Georgia and say, I can get this number. Yeah.
So the other thing that's interesting that we heard Tuesday at the Combine is Terry Fontenot, the general manager for the Atlanta Falcons, say that they are very comfortable with Kirk Cousins as their backup. Now, this is interesting because I don't know. I think he's scheduled to make $27.5 million.
Right.
And it's fully guaranteed. Now, if he's on the roster at a certain date, $10 million for 2026 kicks in. But I've been thinking about this, Andrew. He's got a no trade clause, so they can't really trade him, right? He can just reject any trade. This is interesting because if you're the Falcons, you cut him. He's going to go somewhere else for the minimum. you got to pay him $26 million or whatever it is anyway. Maybe you might as well just keep him as your backup because he'd be a quality backup. Whereas maybe they're hoping that Cousins doesn't want to be a backup. He wants to play somewhere, and he'll be willing to do something with the deal. What do you think's going on with Cousins and the Falcons?
Well, I think a year ago, even way before anything else happened, I think the decision was made between Arthur Blank and Terry Fontenot. We're on the hook for $100 million or maybe $90 million. 2 years. And I believe wholeheartedly that was decision even when they drafted Penix number 8, Michael Penix. So I think they understand. They paid 63.5. They've got 27.5 this year, whether he's on the team or not. And then and then 10 next year, which may or may not happen. I mean, I am everyone knows me. He is one of the leaders in my Business of Sports Hall of Fame, where he's made so much money being not the greatest quarterback in the world, but he's leveraged free agency, he's leveraged the franchise tag, he's leveraged free agency twice with the Vikings and the Falcons. So I think this could stand because I think that there's not a team willing to give him a starting job. Why would he go somewhere else to either be a backup or compete for a starter? And I assume he moved his family. He doesn't want to move him again another year. He seems to get along with Penix, and Penix could get hurt. So I'm another one like Stafford. At the end of the day, I'm saying that he stays in Atlanta and makes that money and adds to his resume in my Business of Football Hall of Fame.
So what's interesting to me about it is there's some real similarities here, Andrew, between this and the Deshaun Watson situation, in the sense that you have a quarterback that the franchise no longer wants to be the starter pretty clearly, but they're still on the hook for major dollars in each situation. And I guess it just feels like, maybe the Browns should just keep Deshaun Watson as the backup quarterback. They got to pay him regardless. You have to have somebody be the backup quarterback. That's usually like a $3 to $10 million proposition, depending on how good you want the guy to be. You might as well just have the most overpriced backup ever if you're that team, right?
Yeah, well, Watson's got another kicker, which is the cap. It's an albatross, the biggest one ever. I think it's over $100 million of dead money if they get rid of him. So they got to not only pay him, they got to keep him. He is a uncuttable, untradeable player. I've said that 2 years. But they're not going to play him, Ross. It just appears that they're looking for an alternative. So I think the question with Watson is he going to be a backup on the roster or off the roster? Meaning it could be like Texans in 2021, where he was paid to stay home. Like they could be just done with him. And as you said, they can't cut him. So, okay, just stay home. Stay home and you don't have to be in Cleveland. I mean, it could come to that. It just feels like you and I have talked about a malaise around that franchise with him there. And I think he'll be there because they can't get rid of him. And they'll look for a better quarterback, another quarterback. I don't know if he'll even be the backup. I don't even know that.
There were a lot of years, Andrew, where you represented the Packers at owners' meetings.
Yeah.
Okay? As their representative or one of the two representatives. They are the team, it's been confirmed, that has submitted a proposal to ban the Tush Push. And I guess I'm just curious what your reaction is to that, being a longtime Packers exec.
Yeah. People who know me, and you do as well as anyone, know my two teams, the Packers and the Eagles. And on this one, I think I'm going to side with the Super Bowl champions. I don't think the Packers are alone in wanting to ban this play, but I think it's discrimination, whatever the word is, against one team. To me, Ross, and I really want to hear your opinion on this, it is what's uncanny about the Tush Push is not that the Eagles have perfected it. It's that no other team has, right? So if you think that it's a competitive advantage that should be outlawed of pushing a player on a quarterback sneak, why is it not an advantage for more than one team or two, whatever the Bills, whatever? Why? So it just, you see the illogic to it. And I guess I would ask this to Mark Murphy at the Packers and all my former colleagues there. What is the thing you're worried about with this play if 29 teams don't know how to do it or don't know how to make it work? Because I said this, Ross, Aaron Rodgers for a few years there, right? He was getting teams to jump off sides like crazy. And he was getting teams to have 12 men on the field because he was so quick to the line on third down. Somehow that stopped along the way, right? Teams got coached up. Teams got smart. Teams figured it out. I wonder if that can happen here, or are we saying the Eagles are just too physical for the rest of the league? I don't get it. That's what I'm worried. I don't understand what the problem is if everyone has an availability to do this. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I would love to debate anyone on the logic of it or how they would propose eliminating it. Because I think if you propose eliminating it, the only way you could say it is you could go and say you can't push a runner at all. You can't push any ball carrier, which to me is incredibly unnatural, right? Like, let's say it's 3rd and 2 and we hand it to the running back and he gets hit at 1.5 yards, right, by a linebacker. Here comes a D lineman. Here comes a DB. The offensive lineman, I'm 320 pounds. I'm supposed to just stand there at that point?
Right.
Like, that is unnatural. That does not work. I need to be pushing him forward. Like, so I would submit to you that pushing forward is a natural reaction. The Eagles just figured out, hey, on quarterback sneaks, we could do it from. And by the way, the Ravens do it really successfully with Mark Andrews. He comes in motion and gets it. The Bills kill it with Josh Allen. I think I saw where maybe the most successful team was the Packers when they do it with like Tucker Kraft in motion. So it's like, I don't see the problem at all. And by the way, it's not 100% play. The Eagles got stopped a number of times this past year, and other teams do it very successfully as well. So anyway, that I just thought it was interesting. The way I look at things, Andrew, I'd be like embarrassed if I were a Packers fan, because it's like, we're the team that did it. You know what I mean? Like, there's other teams. Raheem Morris said it publicly, whatever, but it just feels like it's kind of like sad. Like, oh, we can't stop the big bad Eagles, so we're going to try to get this play banned. Kind of funny to me.
Yeah, you had a great point, because I was thinking about that. I didn't tweet any of this, but you're right. When you're down the field and one of those, 6-yard passes turns into 13 yards with the pushing, everyone loves that, right? The home crowd goes nuts.
Yeah.
If you're like pushing, some strong receiver won't go down, but he's got help. And that's exactly like, how do you legislate that versus standing start of a quarterback, I guess? Now, I don't know. Do you think Jalen Hurts would have scored the vast majority of those or converted without a push?
I think that if they did ban it, I think the Eagles quarterback sneak would still be very successful.
The most.
I don't know if you've ever seen like Landon Dickerson and Jordan Mailata, but they are enormous human beings, and they're extremely powerful in the prime of their careers. I still think Hurts would quarterback sneak to the left and have a lot of success. I do think the push helps, but the push has also gotten them to the point where the other teams all geared up for it. If they started to just do quick quarterback sneaks without it, or, he's in the shotgun, then he comes up and does it real fast, like, I think the Eagles would still have a lot of success. I really do.
Quick shout out. You mentioned Landon Dickerson last week, flight from Dallas to Philly. The guy, we land in like 12 degrees, Ross. He's got shorts and a t-shirt.
Landon?
Yes. He's on my flight. And but the main thing is that I know you know better than anyone. Linemen don't get a lot of love from the public, but he was getting showered and handled everything with total class.
Oh, that's awesome.
Took all the selfies. Really.
I love hearing that. I'm curious, Andrew. I saw something, a tweet. You had an interesting tweet about the salary cap increase. Yeah. I think it's going from what, 255 to 280.
Yeah.
So we're going to say 25 million, and if you're going 255 to 280, you're talking about 10%. But you had interesting comment like where you don't think it's that much.
Yeah, I don't. I mean, I think everyone's going to get excited about $25 million, but I'm here, sorry to rain on the parade of these fans wanting all their team to spend, but the natural maturation of contracts, right? So each, the rookie contracts, maybe that's half your team. They only go up a few $100,000, but we're talking about your top 10 to 15 contracts, Ross, going up naturally according to their scheduled amounts from $1 million to $2 to $3 for quarterbacks, $5 million sometimes. So take 15 contracts going up $1 to $3 million. That soaks up your entire increase. We're speaking a lot about the Packers. There was a stat that between Xavier McKinney and Rashawn Gary, the increase is over $20 million. That's most of your cap increase. So I just want everyone to understand from a realistic point of view of someone who's done this for 10 years, 25 million is not a lot when you're talking about 60 players and your top 15 getting increases. Superstar quarterbacks, again, are going up $5, $6, $7 million in 1 year. That's a quarter of your increase right there.
Wow. I guess the last thing, Andrew, is just the combine conversations.
Yeah.
You've been in them. You've done them. What are they really like? Do you say, what if number 56 was a free agent? Or do you just say it?
No, I think you have to be careful. There's always the concern of other teams. This is a highly competitive league. So you don't know who's listening in Indianapolis. So you have to I'm a lawyer, right? Everyone knows I'm a lawyer. You're going to say it the right way. So if your guy is out there, right? If your guy is out there, what would he be looking for? That's not tampering. That's not illegal, right? And everyone knows the Packers weren't a big free agent team to begin with. The frustrating thing for me, Ross, was at the combine seeing agents for my players have a dance card of meetings. And I'm like, what about me? Do you want, oh no, I'm a little busy right now. I don't know if we can talk to you. We'll fit you in when we can. I'm like, we're the incumbent team. That was the frustrating time. Sometimes I couldn't even get to talk to agents for our own players because they're so busy trying to shop them around. But it's what it is. I say it every year, Ross. The combine is a huge business event. I went there 10 years and I never saw a workout, and I was busy the whole time. Agents, other team executives. We had working club meetings, NFL meetings for some of our groups and task forces, etc. So it's like a convention for football.
Love it. Love talking with you. Check him out at Andrew Brandt, obviously. Check out the Ross Tucker Football Podcast and the Business of Sports Podcast, both part of the RT Media family. Thank you, Andrew.
Thanks, Ross. Always a pleasure to do it together.
I think you guys know by now, I do like to drink alcohol from time to time, and I do not like to spend a lot of money when I do so, which is why I'm a big fan of Smirnoff. It's the world's #1 vodka, and you can get it without breaking the bank. I'm big, actually, Jack, on like Smirnoff and Pedialyte, Smirnoff and like any type of Gatorade, because then I'm, getting a little buzz, getting a little what I'm looking for there, but also hydrating at the same time. It's amazing, almost as amazing as this episode, by the way. Highly encourage you guys, if you've never had Smirnoff vodka, do it. It's Smirnoff Extraordinary. Please drink responsibly. Smirnoff #21 vodka, distilled from grain, 40% alcohol by volume. The Smirnoff Company, New York, New York. Pricing is at the sole discretion of the retailer. May vary by state. Please not share with anyone under legal drinking age.
Tuck's Takes.
All right, Ross, you and Andrew already pretty much talked about most of this, but do you have any other thoughts on the Packers submitting a proposal to ban Tush Push? Commanders, they give Jonathan Allen permission to seek a trade, and the Falcons say they're comfortable keeping Kirk Cousins as their backup.
Well, my thought on Jonathan Allen is very clear, and it makes me sad. The idea of him not being there. He's been like their best player the last, whatever it is, 7 years when they've been not good. And now they're finally good and he might not be there. That bums me out for Jonathan, but I understand. I also think he was playing pretty injured last year. So I think I'll be curious to see what his market is. The Falcons with Cousins as the backup, that kind of makes sense to me. I mean, you have to have a backup quarterback anyway. Why do you want to pay Kirk Cousins $26.5 million to play somewhere else? I wouldn't do that. As far as the Packers and the Tush Push, they're not the only ones. Raheem Morris said he doesn't like the play either. Sean McDermott has some concerns about it. I don't want to hear the player health and safety or the injury stuff because I'm not aware of anybody that's actually gotten injured, certainly not for the Eagles. That's kind of a stupid argument. I think they'd have a really tough time, to be honest with you, coming up with the rule. I mean, if they're going to say go back to the way it used to be that you can't push a runner, to me, that goes so against your instincts when you're playing Pop Warner or high school football. That would be really, really weird. And I would say this, I think my big takeaway from it is that I'd be embarrassed as a Packers fan. I think it's crazy that the one guy in an ownership position, Mark Murphy, that actually played, he played in the NFL for a while. He's the one that wants them to get rid of it. And the Packers are actually kind of successful at it. I think just say you don't like the way it looks is what I want people to say, and then try to figure out a rule to change it. It's not going to be very easy. Other than that, I think we're done here.
Thanks for tuning in to the Ross Tucker Football Podcast. Make sure to also check out Even Money, Fantasy Feast, and College Draft, all on the DraftKings Network on Samsung TV Plus, YouTube, or subscribe to the podcast on your favorite platform.
Shout out myfrontpagestory.com. If you blew it for Valentine's Day, you can make up for it by getting somebody special in your life a personalized newspaper cover story written all about how amazing they are. BackOfficeScheduler.com, HumanHeadNYC.com, Sporticulture, Pizza Boy Brewing.